Largest oil producer on Earth for almost 100 years. And nobody thought we'd ever peak.
The pump does not know when midnight comes. Days are the same to it. Each day, every day, it brings us another 24 hours of progress. Building our nation, guarding its security, assuring the future of America.
And many, if not all, oil geologists thought that that would go on forever.
Throughout this half-century, Dr. Hubbard has been a continuous student of energy resources and their implications in human affairs. As long as 20 years ago, Dr. Hubbard was pointing out to his colleagues in the petroleum industry that the United States would probably reach its peak of petroleum production within 10 to 15 years.
He was virtually laughed out of his profession for making such a ridiculous prediction.
The optimists back then were saying, this is crazy. We're finding 6 barrels of oil for every barrel that we consume. We're never going to run out or peak or anything like that.
He realized that oil discovery had peaked in the 1930s and was declining. And he could extrapolate that to figure out how much oil there would be altogether. The amount that you discover initially starts out rising very rapidly. But after a while, it slows down because there's less of it to discover. And eventually it will turn over and come back down again like that. Now the rate of production of oil, the extraction or use of oil, will be a second bell-shaped curve, and it comes necessarily later than this because you have to discover it before you can produce it. So there'll be a second curve like this for production. And the two will eventually go to zero. And this peak here, the peak in the production curve, is what's referred to as Hubbard's peak.
If we've only produced about 50 billion barrels in 100 years, and if we have 100 billion barrels still to go, which is twice that amount, I wonder first, how long will it be before there's an oil shortage? The U.S. will hit the peak of oil production in about 10 or 15 years from that date.
When 1970 came along, sure enough, it happened just as he said it would.
It turns out that in December 1970, the U.S. peaked at 10.2 million barrels a day, and then oil prices went through the roof. We went on a drilling boom of epic proportion. Ten years later, we were drilling and completing 4.5 times more oil wells than we were doing back when we peaked. And our domestic oil production from the lower 48 and the shallow waters of the Outer Continental Shelf had already declined from 10.2 million barrels a day to 6.9 million barrels a day. Doesn't sound terribly illogical. If we've been living on more oil consumed every year than we found for 30 years, I guess it's inevitable that sooner or later we were going to reach that.